Beyond the jackpot, the real cost of instant wealth fantasies.
While the ugly math of lottery dream meticulously dissects the statistical improbability of winning the lottery, it merely scratches the surface of the broader psychological, economic, and societal ramifications of chasing instant wealth. This extended exploration aims to pull back the curtain even further, exposing the pervasive allure of get-rich-quick schemes and their insidious effects on financial well-being.
The siren song of superficial success, deconstructing the overnight millionaire narrative.
Ah, the great American dream. Once upon a time, it involved dedicated effort, meticulous planning, and the steady accumulation of assets. Now, for a dishearteningly large segment of the population, it appears to hinge upon a crumpled piece of paper, a quick-pick selection, and a fervent prayer to the capricious gods of numerical fortune. We are, of course, discussing the modern-day opium of the masses, the lottery, and its most alluring yet insidious propaganda, the overnight millionaire narrative. The video, The Ugly Math of Lottery Dream, sagaciously exposed the statistical absurdity of this pursuit. However, it is imperative to acknowledge that the problem extends far beyond mere mathematical illiteracy. It delves into the realm of expertly crafted psychological manipulation, where the occasional, dazzling triumph of one individual effectively blinds millions to their own consistent, incremental losses. We are not just witnessing bad arithmetic. We are observing a masterclass in societal hypnosis. Consider, if you will, the ubiquitous media coverage of a lottery jackpot winner. Every news cycle, without fail, a beaming face, often clutching an oversized novelty check, graces our screens. The narrative is invariably pristine, almost biblical in its simplicity. Humble local resident, Joe Schmo, a plumber by trade, just won $80 million. The cameras pan to his ecstatic family, perhaps a new luxury vehicle in the background, or an immediate promise to pay off debts and travel the world. The imagery is potent, aspirational, and utterly devoid of context. What is conspicuously, glaringly absent from this feel-good fairy tale? The hundreds of millions of other individuals who bought a ticket for that very same drawing, whose hopes evaporated faster than a politician's campaign promise in a heated debate. You, my financially aspiring friend, are part of that vast, silent, and consistently losing majority. The purveyors of this particular brand of hope, the lottery commissions themselves, are master illusionists of the highest caliber. They do not under any circumstance sell you a statistically insignificant chance at wealth. They sell you an emotion. They sell you freedom from the mundane, the ability to tell your irksome boss precisely where he can store his TPS reports. They sell you the tantalizing notion that financial acumen, prudent budgeting, and diligent saving are entirely optional when fate, in its infinite wisdom, decides to smile upon you with a six-figure or even nine-figure payout. Their marketing campaigns are not about numbers. They're about dreams, about escape, about the seductive whisper of what if, that sidesteps any inconvenient encounter with reality. Our brains, those wondrous, yet occasionally self-deceptive organs, are exquisitely tuned to remember the anomaly. All this cognitive bias, known as the availability heuristic, ensures that the singular image of a lottery winner buying a mansion remains far more vivid and accessible than the millions of forgotten dollars spent by average citizens on worthless slips of paper. You recall the giddy grin of the 20-something who purchased a private island. You conveniently, and perhaps defensively, forget the countless sullen faces clutching expired tickets, whose hopes and meager financial contributions vanished into the coffers of state-sponsored gambling. Some of you, bless your optimistically deluded hearts, even entertain the notion that your chosen numbers, perhaps derived from your beloved dog's birthday or the atomic weight of unobtainium, possess a mystical advantage. As if a randomized number generator possesses the capacity to care for your sentimentality or your meticulously calculated patterns. And let us not overlook the strategic deployment of the smaller wins. The congratulations, you won $3. Messages that often greet players upon checking their numbers. These are not genuine victories, dear readers. These are crumbs from the table of statistical inevitability, meticulously and strategically deployed to keep you tethered to the belief that next time will undeniably be different. It is akin to a shrewd casino dealer, allowing a player a small win at the roulette table. It's just enough to reignite a flickering hope and compel them to remain, oblivious to the steady, undeniable drain of their chips. These micro-wins serve as psychological anchors, reinforcing the notion that winning is possible and that your turn is merely a matter of time and persistent participation. Therefore, when you next encounter the overnight millionaire narrative, understand that it is not merely a miscalculation of odds or an innocent misunderstanding of probability. It is a meticulously engineered marketing ploy, a societal hypnosis that actively encourages you to swap tangible financial progress, however modest, for the fleeting endorphin rush associated with purchasing a lottery ticket. It is not bad math. It is, quite frankly, brilliant, albeit morally questionable illusion. And you, my financially aspiring friend, are the primary audience, and sadly, often the unwitting victim.
The economic echo chamber, disparities and the dream tax.
Let us pivot from the individual delusions of grandeur to the societal panorama, where the illusion of instant wealth casts a particularly long, dark shadow. We are talking about the economic echo chamber, disparities and the dream tax, a phenomenon where the lottery, cloaked in the benevolent guise of public funding, quietly yet effectively siphons resources from those who can least afford it. This, my friends, is not merely a game of chance. It is a meticulously designed wealth transfer mechanism, albeit one presented with a smile and the promise of untold riches. The previous discussion illuminated how the lottery's marketing deftly sidesteps mathematical reality, selling hope rather than probabilities. Now let us examine precisely whose hope is being sold and at what cost. Who, precisely, are the most frequent patrons of this glorious institution? The data, inconveniently for the purveyors of public good, paints a rather stark picture. Studies consistently show that individuals from lower socioeconomic brackets, those with less formal education, minority groups disproportionately spend a larger percentage of their income on lottery tickets. This is not because they are inherently less intelligent or more prone to irrational behavior. It is often because they are presented with fewer, if any, genuinely viable pathways to significant upward mobility. When the rungs of the economic ladder seem perpetually out of reach, a $60 million jackpot starts looking less like a fantasy, and more like the only practical solution to one's intractable financial woes. It is a desperate, yet understandable gambit, born of systemic disenfranchisement. Consider the cruel irony. The very funds that could be allocated to basic necessities, groceries, utilities, transportation, perhaps even a meager emergency fund, are instead funneled into a state-sponsored apparatus that promises the moon but delivers only statistical oblivion. That $5 spent on a Mega Millions ticket, which offers a 1 in 302 million chance of winning, represents a far greater percentage of disposable income for a minimum wage earner than for a corporate executive. For the former, it might be the difference between a full tank of gas and an empty one. For the latter, it is a negligible rounding error in their monthly budget. Yet, the narrative persists. Anyone can win, as anyone can win, just as anyone can become a professional basketball player. The operative word, however, remains can, not will, and certainly not should rely upon. This diversion of critical funds is not just an individual tragedy. It is a community-level drain. Imagine the collective impact if the millions, if not billions of dollars spent annually on lottery tickets by low-income communities were instead invested in local businesses, educational initiatives, or even basic financial literacy programs. Picture the ripple effect. Small businesses flourishing, children receiving better resources, families building actual savings accounts rather than ephemeral dreams. Instead, these dollars flow into state coffers, often earmarked for education, a noble cause to be sure, but one that is funded on the backs of those least able to afford it, thereby deepening rather than alleviating economic disparities. It is a peculiar form of public finance where the most vulnerable citizens are effectively taxed for the privilege of subsidizing public services. This dream tax actively exacerbates wealth gaps. Wealth, by its very definition, is accumulated. It is the result of saving, investing, and prudent financial decisions over time. The lottery, conversely, is a system designed to strip wealth, however incrementally. from the many to occasionally shower it upon the statistically improbable few. It discourages the very habits that lead to financial independence, patience, discipline, compound interest, and replaces them with a dependency on blind luck. How can one expect to build generational wealth when the concept of investment is replaced by the ritualistic purchase of a lottery ticket? It is an economic echo chamber where the promises of wealth creation ring hollow. It's drowned out by the constant clatter of discarded tickets and the silent sighs of perpetual losers. Moreover, the state's role in promoting this system is a masterclass in pragmatic hypocrisy. While simultaneously advocating for financial responsibility and literacy, state governments aggressively market lotteries, often highlighting the millions contributed to schools or infrastructure. This creates a moral quandary. Is it truly ethical to fund public services through a mechanism that demonstrably preys on the financial desperation and mathematical illiteracy of its most vulnerable citizens? It is akin to a doctor prescribing a placebo that costs a fortune but promises a miracle, all while subtly enriching the hospital. The optics are frankly appalling, yet the revenue stream is simply too addictive for many legislatures to resist. Every dollar spent on a lottery ticket is a dollar of lost leverage. It is a dollar that cannot buy a stock, cannot pay down high-interest debt, cannot contribute to a child's college fund, and cannot purchase a tool to learn a new skill. It represents a squandered opportunity to gain financial agency, to exert control over one's economic future. This cumulative loss of individual leverage translates directly into a collective disempowerment for entire communities. They are not merely losing money, they're forfeiting the very means to improve their circumstances, trading tangible financial power for the ephemeral thrill of a lottery drawing. This is the true, ugly consequence of the dream tax. It is an economic millstone, masquerading as a golden ticket, steadily grinding down the aspirations of those who need genuine financial solutions the most.
Rewriting the script, strategic alternatives to luck-based living.
All right, let us cease wallowing in the collective misery of the lottery's mathematical abomination and societal exploitation. It is time for a paradigm shift, a veritable financial insurrection against the tyranny of chance. The previous discussions adeptly dismantled the ugly math and exposed the dream tax. Now we pivot sharply to what one actually should do, rather than simply admonishing what one should not do. Because, frankly, merely telling people to stop playing the lottery without offering concrete, actionable alternatives is akin to advising a starving man to stop dreaming of food without presenting him with a meal. It is unhelpful, a touch condescending, and ultimately, profoundly unproductive. We are here to rewrite the script, to transform the passive recipient of financial misfortune into the active architect of financial fortune. This is about strategic alternatives to luck-based living, which, for clarity, means anything that involves more statistical certainty than wishing upon a fallen star. Forget the siren song of instant millions. We shall focus on the quiet, yet immensely powerful hum of compounding returns and skill acquisition. This is where the truly intelligent bets are placed, not on a random sequence of numbers, but on oneself. First, let us address the most common and frankly irritating piece of financial advice. Save money. Marvelous, thank you. Captain Obvious. But how precisely does one save money when every financial guru seems to suggest either living on ramen noodles for a decade or possessing inherited wealth? The answer, ironically, involves a form of calculated risk, but not the kind that involves a 1 in 300 million probability of success. It involves investing in human capital. This is your personal financial bedrock, the very foundation upon which all other wealth-building strategies rest. What is human capital, you ask? It is you magnificent, untapped resource. It is your skills, your knowledge, your abilities, and your capacity to learn. Imagine, for a moment, redirecting the annual sum you, or your neighbor, might frivolously spend on lottery tickets, perhaps a few $100s, perhaps more. Instead of feeding the beast of statistical despair, imagine funneling that sum into a vocational course, an online certification, a specialized workshop, or even just a collection of books that teach you a new, marketable skill. The return on investment for enhancing your income-earning potential is, quite frankly, astronomical when compared to the lottery. When you learn to code, or become a certified welder, or master digital marketing, you are not hoping for a random drawing to bless your bank account. You are actively increasing your market value. You are turning yourself into a more valuable asset, a process that offers a near guaranteed return. Unlike that colorful slip of paper that guarantees nothing but buyer's remorse. Next, let us talk about the decidedly unglamorous, yet utterly indispensable financial bulletproof vest, the emergency fund. Before you even contemplate dreams of early retirement or yacht ownership, you absolutely must construct a financial safety net. This is not optional. It is foundational. An emergency fund, typically 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses stashed in an easily accessible, high-yield one-can-dream savings account. It's your first true jackpot. It is the difference between a minor setback, a car repair, an unexpected medical bill, a temporary job loss, and a full-blown financial catastrophe that sends you spiraling into high-interest debt. This fund is not designed to make you rich. It is designed to prevent you from becoming utterly destitute the moment life decides to throw a curveball. It is the boring, responsible adult version of winning the lottery, only it actually protects you from losing everything. Then there is the glorious, albeit often overlooked concept of debt reduction, particularly high-interest debt. If you are regularly purchasing lottery tickets while simultaneously carrying balances on credit cards at 20% interest, you are, to put it mildly, financially illiterate and actively sabotaging your own future. Paying off high-interest debt is equivalent to earning a guaranteed, risk-free return equal to that interest rate. Where else in the financial universe can you find a 20% guaranteed return without risking a single penny of principal? It is a win every single month, a tangible reduction in your financial burden, which is far more satisfying than the fleeting fantasy of a Powerball ticket. Stop subsidizing the banks. Start subsidizing your own peace of mind. Finally, we arrive at the true magic. The slow and steady tortoise that invariably beats the lottery's hair. Compounding interest and diversified investments. This is not complicated. This is not exclusive to the financial elite. This is the simple yet profound power of your money making more money, which then also makes more money. In conclusion, dear aspiring financially liberated individuals, the script is simple. Invest in yourself. Build a fortress against unexpected calamity. Eradicate the financial leeches of high-interest debt. And then, and only then, let the quiet magic of diversified investments do its work. Discipline, not divine intervention, is the true path to financial liberation. The only jackpot worth pursuing is the one you steadily build, brick by boring, responsible brick. And unlike the lottery, this strategy almost always pays out.
The gambler's fallacy in real life. Case studies of near misses and could-haves.
All right, let us delve into the delicious irony of human irrationality, particularly when our financial futures are at stake. We have meticulously dissected the math, exposed the systemic exploitation, and even offered some sound, albeit boring alternatives. Now it is time for the psychological autopsy, specifically focusing on the gambler's fallacy in real life, case studies of near misses and could-haves. This is where the rubber meets the road, or more accurately, where a perfectly rational mind goes utterly sideways, convinced that a run of bad luck must, by divine decree, be followed by a winning streak. It is the belief that if a coin has landed on heads 5 times in a row, the next flip is more likely to be tails. In the lottery world, it manifests as, I have not won in ages, so I am due. Oh, bless your heart. The numbers. Bless their cold, indifferent hearts, do not care about your due. Let us begin with a cautionary tale, a narrative spun from the tragic threads of misplaced hope and persistent delusion. Meet Brenda, a cashier from Omaha, Nebraska. Returned to 5 years, Brenda meticulously purchased 2 Powerball tickets every Wednesday and Saturday. Her rationale? Someone's got to win, and I've been playing long enough, it's got to be me eventually. Brenda celebrated every near miss, matching a single number, then 2, then once, gloriously, 3 numbers. Each partial match was a confirmation, a whisper from the universe. You are getting closer, Brenda. Just keep at it. She meticulously tracked her numbers, convinced that patterns would emerge. Over a quarter century, Brenda spent, conservatively, $5 a week on the lottery. It is $260 a year. Over 25 years, that is $6,500. Not a life-shattering sum, perhaps, but certainly not insignificant for someone living paycheck to paycheck. Brenda retired with no savings, relying solely on Social Security, and occasionally, with a wistful sigh, she still buys a scratch-off ticket, convinced that her luck must turn. Her could've. That $6,500, invested in a conservative index fund over 25 years, even at a modest 6% annual return, would have grown to over $13,500. Double her principal without lifting a finger, just by being statistically sensible. Instead, she has a drawer full of losing tickets and a lifetime of almost. Now, for a beacon of actual financial common sense, let us introduce Mark, a landscaper from Phoenix, Arizona. Mark, much like Brenda, dabbled in the lottery in his younger days. He enjoyed the occasional scratch-off, the fleeting thrill. However, after a particularly sobering financial literacy course offered through his local community college, yes, those exist, and they are significantly more useful than a fortune teller, he had an epiphany. My $5 a week, he mused, is funding someone else's dream, not mine. Mark redirected that $5. He opened a Roth IRA and set up an automatic weekly transfer of $5 into a broad market S&P 500 index fund. For a while, it felt insignificant. He certainly did not get the immediate rush of scratching off a ticket. But then, the magic of compounding interest began to weave its spell. After 15 years, that modest $5 a week, accumulating over $3,900 in contributions, had grown to nearly $8,000. Mark, encouraged, increased his contributions. He used the interest on his small savings to help fund a certification in xeriscaping, diversifying his skills and increasing his income. His jackpot was not instant. It was gradual, earned, and entirely predictable. He bet on himself, on the consistent growth of the market, and on the power of compounding. He chose the quiet hum of financial growth over the deafening silence of a losing ticket. The insidious nature of the gambler's fallacy and the near-miss effect cannot be overstated. Lottery designers are not idiots. They are brilliant psychologists. They know that matching 2 or 3 numbers on a ticket, even if it yields a paltry $3 prize, is enough to activate the brain's reward system, telling you are almost there. It fuels the illusion of control, the false belief that you are honing some skill, getting closer to decrypting the universe's secret code. You are not. It is pure, unadulterated random chance. Each drawing is an entirely independent event, oblivious to previous outcomes or your personal investment in the game. Your near miss simply means you did not win, just like the millions of others who did not win. It is not a sign. It is a statistical irrelevance. The true tragedy lies in the could-haves. It is the mental accounting of all the alternative uses for that consistently siphoned money. The hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that could have been tuition for an evening class, tools for a new hobby, seed money for a small business, or simply just sitting there. It's quietly accumulating interest in a savings account, building a buffer against life's inevitable unkindness. Every dollar spent on a lottery ticket is a dollar that cannot be spent on improving your life, increasing your human capital, or securing your financial future. It is a sacrifice of tangible progress for an ephemeral hope, a tangible loss for an almost guaranteed non-win. So, the next time you feel due for a win, or get that little thrill from a near miss, remember Brenda, clutching her empty tickets, and Mark, watching his modest investments steadily grow. The real jackpot is not found in the fleeting, random chance of a lottery drawing. It is forged in the consistent, disciplined, and utterly mundane choices you make every single day. It is the unwavering decision to bet on reality, on compound interest, and most importantly on yourself, rather than on the arbitrary roll of a numerical dice. And that, my friends, is a gamble that almost always pays off.
The generational drag, long-term consequences of lottery culture.
All right, let us pull back the curtain on the grandest deception of all, the lottery's long-term impact, not just on individual bank accounts, but on the very fabric of societal financial health. We have meticulously dissected the individual follies and the immediate financial hemorrhaging. Now, it is time to gaze into the crystal ball, or perhaps the broken piggy bank, to explore the generational drag, long-term consequences of lottery culture. This, my friends, is where the benign image of a harmless pastime gives way to a rather insidious force, subtly undermining the foundations of economic progress for entire communities and future generations. Consider, if you will, the insidious nature of normalization. When something becomes a routine, a cultural touchstone, its inherent irrationality often recedes into the background, replaced by a comfortable familiarity. The lottery in many American communities has achieved this dubious status. It is discussed at water coolers, its jackpots become news headlines, and the purchase of a ticket is seen as a perfectly acceptable, even patriotic, act of civic engagement. After all, it funds schools. But what does this widespread acceptance of wealth by random chance do to a society's collective financial psyche? It is, to put it mildly, a cognitive poison. When the primary narrative for achieving significant wealth shifts from diligent work, strategic saving, and prudent investment to the sporadic hope of a lottery drawing, we systematically undermine the very principles of financial literacy. Why bother learning about compound interest when the idea of instantaneous millions is perpetually dangled before your eyes? Why stress over budgeting when a $5 ticket promises to make all budget woes disappear? The lottery culture subtly, yet powerfully, tells us that wealth creation is a matter of luck, not effort. This is not merely an individual misunderstanding, it is a societal programming error. Children growing up in environments where lottery tickets are commonplace learn that money can appear magically, untethered to productivity or value creation. This teaches them precisely the wrong lessons about economics, responsibility, and the true nature of financial success. It is a slow, generational erosion of financial wisdom. Furthermore, this cultural embrace of chance actively stifles the entrepreneurial spirit and diminishes the perceived value of hard work. Why spend years toiling, innovating, and taking calculated risks to build a business when the corner store offers a shortcut to unimaginable riches? The allure of the instant jackpot subtly suggests that the painstaking process of creating value, solving problems, and serving others is somehow a less desirable or efficient path to wealth. This is a tragedy for any nation that prides itself on innovation and upward mobility. When the American dream pivots from build a better mousetrap to win the Powerball, you have lost more than just money. You have lost a significant piece of your economic soul. The true wealth of a nation is built not on random chance, but on the collective ingenuity and sustained effort of its citizens. The lottery distracts from this fundamental truth. Then there is the grim reality of intergenerational wealth transfer, or, more accurately, the distinct lack thereof. In a society where economic mobility is increasingly challenging, even small amounts of seed capital can make an enormous difference. A few $1,000s saved over a decade could be a down payment on a first home, tuition for a vocational certification, or capital for a microbusiness. These small, seemingly insignificant sums, when invested wisely, have the potential to compound and provide a crucial leg up for the next generation. However, when these discretionary dollars are consistently siphoned off by the lottery, that potential is squandered. Families who struggle to accumulate even modest assets find themselves in a perpetual holding pattern, unable to break the cycle. The dream tax, as we have called it, ensures that capital flows out of these communities rather than accumulating within them. It is a silent, systemic barrier to upward mobility, passed down from one generation to the next, not through explicit inheritance, but through the implicit inheritance of a flawed financial mindset and diminished resources. Finally, consider the almost comedic hypocrisy of state governments. On one hand, they launch campaigns promoting financial literacy, extolling the virtues of saving, budgeting, and investing for the future. On the other hand, they are the largest purveyors of the lottery, aggressively marketing a product that directly contradicts every single one of those sound financial principles. They simultaneously lament wealth, inequality, and then fund public services on the backs of those least able to afford it, further exacerbating the very problem they claim to address. It is a morally bankrupt fiscal strategy, dressed up in the shiny wrapper of voluntary entertainment. This constant dissonance between rhetoric and reality fosters a public cynicism that undermines trust in institutions and the very concept of sound financial guidance. In conclusion, the generational drag inflicted by lottery culture is far more profound than a simple personal loss. It is a societal inhibitor, a subtle yet potent force that stunts financial literacy, discourages entrepreneurial effort, prevents intergenerational wealth accumulation, and ultimately slows the engine of economic mobility. It is a public policy built on paradox, and a cultural phenomenon that preys on hope while delivering only statistical despair. The true cost of the lottery dream is not just the lost dollars, but the lost potential, the stifled ambition, and the perpetuation of a cycle that keeps too many Americans from ever truly grasping their own financial destiny. It is a legacy of illusion, passed down through the generations, and it is anything but funny.
The lottery's grand illusion. You have seen behind the curtain. What now?
So, there you have it, dear seekers of actual financial independence. We have embarked on a rather uncomfortable, yet undeniably illuminating, journey through the grim realities of the lottery, peeling back the layers of its ugly math, exposing its dream tax, and laying bare the generational drag it imposes. You have witnessed how the siren song of the overnight millionaire deftly distracts from the tangible. If unglamorous path to building genuine wealth, the truth, as it so often is far less glamorous than a Powerball headline, but infinitely more empowering. Your financial destiny is not dictated by a random number generator, but by your deliberate, consistent choices. Now, do not just sit there stewing in this newfound, uncomfortable wisdom. Ponder it, discuss it. And if you have found this unflinching dive into financial reality even remotely useful, perhaps it stopped you from blowing another $5 on a statistical fantasy, then do us all a favor. Give this a big, fat thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss our next expose of common financial foolishness. Share this with that one friend who still believes they are due for a win, and for heaven's sake, drop a comment below. Tell us your lottery horror stories, your smart money wins, or simply argue about whether pineapples belong on pizza. Let us build a community that bets on intelligence, not on blind luck.